I forgot I have to stop that manually. Good morning.
Hello,
It is kind
sir.
of
How are you?
good. Vactor, good morning. How are you?
I'm doing excellent because I'm here talking to my favorite Mexican pizza lover.
Yeah. I'm trying to remember. I haven't had a Mexican. I might have to get a Mexican pizza today.
Ooh.
It's been a while
Now
since I've
I'm
had
gonna have
one.
to get one. Dang
Yeah,
it. That's
that
how it
is
works.
one of the weird things with this software I'm using, that the video clips just automatically loop. Oh, there's a button. I just found a button that tells it
Ooh,
not to loop.
nice.
So now I know.
Nice.
Okay. Um we're doing another conversation about the Switch 2, since you were unable to join us yesterday because you were meeting Darth Vader himself, Anakin Skywalker, Hayden Christensen.
Yeah.
We're talking about that a little bit.
Yes.
Did you watch the? Oh, you got pictures too. There you go.
Yes.
Um,
It was a great day yesterday.
what was it at? Where was?
The what used to be called the Phoenix Comic Con is now the Phoenix Fan Fusion. And so
Mm-hmm.
this is like the Phoenix version of it. And this was the only reason, because I don't usually go to it every year because I'm like, yeah, I've been there, I've seen that. But when they announced that Hayden Christensen was going to be there, I said, I have to be there. This is a once in a lifetime chance. My wife has been waiting.
Mm-hmm.
She is a huge number one Darth Vader fan. She has a Darth Vader tattoo on her back, but she's also a huge Hayden Christensen fan. So
Mm-hmm.
we have been waiting for Ewan McGregor and Hayden Christensen. Those were the two guys that we've been waiting for. So when this came up, I jumped on it. I said I have to do it, and it was fantastic. He is the nicest guy in the world.
Nice. Yeah, I hear that a lot. Like you expect. It seems particularly the actors that do the the geek culture stuff, like Star Wars, the sci-fi and fantasy, always seem to be really, when you meet them, people are always saying they're really nice.
Yeah,
So,
I.
and
It's
the
always great
camera
to see
is.
that.
I updated my
Oh no.
software and my camera is still going blank, and
Oh
uh,
man. What
whatever.
um what type of camera do you use? I don't think I've ever talked to you
I'm
about that.
using my iPhone, but I use the Elgato Epoch Pro camera
Oh,
hub.
okay.
I did see when I went to update the software this morning, because I was checking their website, they updated it to 2.0, but they are not supporting the Epocam Pro anymore. Like, they've discontinued it. So I upgraded to the last version of the software that did still have support for the Epoch Cam, but I might have to look at getting a new program because Flash just
Hmm.
goes blank. That's
Dang.
and now we're disconnecting. Yeah, great,
Yes.
sweet. Um, so you did get to view you did not get to participate, but you did watch the stream yesterday. You said
Yes.
um,
Mhm.
this did not work. I did I did like the custom driver and everything.
Ooh.
Flashed it to the controller.
Oh,
Nothing.
man.
Not a
Dang.
single thing that I have connected has worked. But 8-Bit Dough did update their USB receiver to work with the Switch 2.
Mm.
So I bought one. I got to go pick it up at Best Buy after the stream, because they don't open till 11. So they opened when we started streaming. But
Man.
they did release an update for that, because I'm not certain that this controller is going to get an update from them, because it is old and discontinued, as good as it is, and it is confusing. We talked a little bit about it yesterday, that this is the SN30 Pro Plus, and there are there's new SN30s. Wonder Rob in the chat, how casual are we talking? Super casual. This is very low effort.
Yes.
That's why I don't have my my fancy lights behind the screen.
We love casual.
So I got the adapter because I was apparently mistaken about we were talking about the Wii U yesterday and how the controllers go through Wi-Fi. That is apparently just the gamepad with the screen. This does have Bluetooth, and the
Ooh.
8-bit Doe wireless adapter works with the Wii U Pro controller. So,
Okay.
what should happen today is I get this adapter, update the firmware, connect it to the Switch, and I should be able to use my Wii U Pro controller with the Switch too, which would be fantastic.
Yes.
I have too many
Man.
controllers. I don't know. You saw the whole rundown yesterday.
Yes.
I still think it would have been really funny if this would have been the one controller that ended up working with the Switch 2, the old Kickstarter Ouya controller.
Man.
I realized when I was trying to connect it yesterday, it doesn't even have a USB port. Like,
Ooh.
it is solely Bluetooth.
Dang.
This
How
is
does it
also
charge? Oh, is it like AA batteries?
yeah, the
Okay.
the
Wow.
brown parts are magnetic.
Oh.
There's magnets in.
Oh, nice.
You can see the silver
Man, I
magnets.
love magnets. Yes.
And they connect. How do they work? And they connect to the screws are
Oh,
what
man.
they
Oh, that's
attach
cool.
to, and then it's just AA batteries.
Okay.
But I thought it would, and this part here is actually a touchpad.
Ooh. Ooh, yeah.
Yeah. Oh, I see what you mean. It does not have any start or select buttons though. The only thing it's got is like the power button.
Ah. Okay. Man.
And I did try to connect the Wii remote. It does not work. And
Which you would think.
This is AA batteries too. The Steam controller is
Yes.
AA in the
Oh, wow.
in the grips.
That's interesting.
Yeah. So my controller woes continue, but hopefully, fingers crossed, they will be resolved today.
Man, I also went down a controller journey yesterday, and I ended up just taking the easy way out. So I was going down the 8-bit Doe rabbit hole like you, and I bought a $30 Wii Switch controller, and it was the Ultimate 2C. And I was like, oh, this will be it's $30. I like their build quality. I like 8-bit Doe. This will be easy, right? All I got to do is just download the software, just the firmware, and update it. No, I was 2 hours in trying on my Mac, trying on my PC, trying on my iPhone. I tried to update that controller, I don't know how many times, and eventually, at first I just wasn't getting anything. I was plugging it in, it wasn't recognizing it. I went online. You have to hold the left and the right down, and you have to do all this stuff.
Yeah.
That in and of itself was frustrating to me. But then I finally got it to recognize it, and it said update found. Okay, here's the update. Here's just an update button, which I had the software update app, the 8-bit Doe firmware update app. Then there's also an ultimate software app, and so the original one, like, you have to manually do it, and I wasn't finding the firmware. So the second one, the ultimate one, it was like, oh, it just automatically finds it. I was like, oh, okay, great. So then got the update button, pressed update, and that's when I messaged you, and I was like, how long does this normally take? Because I'm sitting here 30 minutes later, and it says updating, and I was looking online, and people were like, oh yeah, it's supposed to take less than 2 minutes. And I was like, well, this is broken. This is not working. I unplugged it, redid it. Like I said, I was there for about 2 hours, and then I said, you know what? I'm just gonna go buy a pro controller. Like, I don't want to spend the money, but it's not worth my time to sit here and do all of this, especially because I wanted to have some time with it before I was on here. So, like I said, I broke down. I just went to Target and I bought a pro controller. I was also going down a rabbit hole of, okay, if I go to the refurbished Best Buy, if I'm over here, or if I go to the used GameStop route, and so at the end of the day, I was like, nobody has it. Target just has it, so let me just buy it from Target. So I paid full price for a Switch Pro
No.
controller, which is less than the Switch Pro 2 controller, and so at least I saved some money there. But at the end of the day, I was a dummy and I just spent money on it. So I got a Pro controller, which is over here.
How is it? That's the Switch 1 Pro controller?
Yes.
I'm assuming they're better now than they were when I got my Switch. I got a Pro controller with it. And like I was saying yesterday, I returned it almost because it had stick drift out of the box.
Oh, wow.
Noticeable stick drift out of the box.
Okay.
So that's when I returned it and ended up ordering the SN30 Pro Plus.
Okay.
There's lots of hearts flying around in the chat. Someone is very happy about this.
It has to be Wonder Rob. He's casually up at 8 a.m. I haven't actually had any problems with the Pro controller. That's been my go-to for a long time. And the only reason I didn't still have one is because I had sold my original Switch. Now, had I known all this ahead of time, I just would have kept my Pro controller.
Yeah.
But yeah, it worked straight away. And I was worried that it wasn't gonna have the right software on it to be like, oh, it doesn't recognize it. Because that's the thing about the Switch 2. My original thinking was, oh, any Bluetooth controller will work on this.
That's what I was thinking too.
And so I have a bunch of 8-bit Does. I have a bunch of Xbox controllers. Like I'm like, oh, I'll just use any Bluetooth controller, like my iPhone, like my iPad, where I can just connect anything. But I haven't had any stick drift in my experience. And the only downside that I've seen online, I've looked online to see what are people saying about the Switch 2 Pro controller. There's remappable buttons on the back, and it remembers instead of
this is the Steam controller, but it's the similar grip button.
And
I've never liked. I said that yesterday.
I saw that there's certain ones like that, third-party ones that they'll remember it for maybe 1 or 2 games, maybe 3. The Switch, the official one, it remembers it across every game. So once you save your button remaps, that is set for life. So that's one thing. And then the other thing is kind of a lazy thing. It doesn't wake the system up.
Yeah.
Which I'm like, oh, I'll just press power on it. That's not a big deal for me. But
yeah,
other than that, it's been good.
Yeah, the only things right now that supposedly will wake the Switch are the Joy-Cons or the Switch 2 Pro controller. I remember I had the same issue with the Switch 1. Like this technically doesn't wake the Switch 1, but sometimes it does. I don't know what.
Ooh.
Like occasionally I would pick this up and hit the button and be like, oh wait, that's not going to work. And then it did. But it was not like consistent or reliable in any way, shape, or form.
Oh. Man, I love the build quality of 8-bit Does, but I just that connectivity.
They feel solid, and they're because like I don't know what it is. Remember, when you'd have like your Super Nintendo or whatnot, and the controllers that were made by Nintendo felt very solid, but all the third-party controllers were like, if you drop them, they were gonna explode.
Yes. Yep.
Yes. The 8-bit ones are really solid. It's the same thing. This is a solid controller too. I'm really interested to see how well this is going to work with the Switch 2 and the 8-bit Do adapter, because I mean, Wii U, this controller's like could probably drive at this point. Might be able to drink.
That is it's funny to think about how long we've had Nintendo products in our lives.
Yeah. Yeah, I was thinking about like I did have an Atari before I had an
Oh,
NES, so I started with an Atari
remember that.
2600. But then when we got the NES, it was all Nintendo from I had a Sega for about a week. I didn't end
Yes,
up
yes.
uh didn't end up keeping it. Uh but went from I've had every Nintendo home console from NES, SNES, N64. I still have my GameCube, my Wii U, my Wii. My Switch 1 I'm probably going to sell because I don't really see any need to hold on to a Switch 1 with the Switch 2. Granted, we're not going to get a lot for it selling Switch 1s now, but um I technically still have my N64 too, but it's one
Mm.
of those things that like ages ago when I was not like gaming a lot or I was really just focused on whatever I had at the time, I lent my N64 to a friend with all my games and controllers. And I did recently message him and be like, "Hey, you still have like my N64 with the, I had the red controller, the blue, the gray, the gold." Um, and basically it boiled down to I know that I just kind of want it back to have it just sit there, but they still actually have it hooked up and are playing it. And I would feel bad being like, I want my N64 back because it wasn't like, here, this is yours now. It was here, you can borrow this for a while. And then it just never until this year, uh, was I like, I think I'd like to get my N64 back, but I know I would just stick it on a shelf and I wouldn't play it. But they have it hooked up and are playing it, so I feel like that's a better home for it. Uh,
Hmm.
if it's still getting use and love.
Yes. Where did the old systems go once they've left our hands?
Yeah, I'd like to know where I have no idea where my NES and my SNES got to. Uh, I would be interested to know what their whereabouts are at this point.
Have we
And
talked about or did we talk about on our last casual chat thinking about your memories of how games played and then you playing them years later and being like, "Oh, these graphics are not though it doesn't feel the way I remember it."
no, I don't think we did, but it is an interesting thing because it's so much easier for me. It's easier to go back to like NES or SNES than it is to go back to something like PlayStation 1 or
Yes,
N64
yes. Yep.
or
Mhm.
sometimes even PS2. There's something
Yes.
about those really, particularly PS1 era, like going back to something like I always think of what's the I'm blanking on the name. Sweet Tooth with the
Oh, Twisted Metal.
yeah, Twisted. I was thinking
Yep.
Crazy Metal. I'm like, no, that's Crazy Taxi, and I'm like meshing Crazy Taxi and Metal Slug.
Yes.
Twisted Metal. Like the graphics on that are not good. Or Metal
Yeah.
Gear Solid
There
One.
Yes. There's something about that, and that's what's interesting to me about remakes now, where you'll have, like, the updated graphics, but it's the same game, and it's like, "Whoa, this is much more like what my memory of this was like," and those PS1 were like the ground level of 3D polygon, like those type of graphics, whereas we were coming off of, I think, what was the height of the 2D sprite, that
Yeah,
the 16-bit generation, and so going into it, it's like, yeah, this did not age as well as those 2D, um, sprite versions of these type of games. So, yeah, that's 100% something that I think about, and I wonder if that's how my dad did not play games, but for
mhm.
the generation before, like, that's how they thought about Pong and Pac-Man and Donkey Kong, like, "Oh, yeah, these games look much better when I was a kid," and then they look at them today, "Ooh, this looks like poo-poo."
Yeah. Um, I always think of the boxing game on the Atari 2600, where it's just the guys overhead and they
Oh,
look
yeah.
like.
And
um,
it is funny to think about, like, when you have restriction, what the creative, um, like
Mhm.
getting over those restrictions and those limitations. Sometimes you get like really great art and really great things, and then sometimes it's like, oh man, these guys were just limited by the tools that they had, and they just could not come up with anything to overcome those obstacles.
Yeah, restrictions can definitely foster creativity and, like, working around things. Um, one of the games that I remember when they came out with the Ocarina of Time 3D on the 3DS,
Yes, yes,
the
yes.
update, and everybody's like, "It looks exactly the same." And then they looked at, like, screenshots next to each other and like, "Oh, wait, but that's how I remember it looking." Like, like, if I try to remember how Ocarina of Time looked when I played it, I'm probably seeing in my head, like, Breath of the Wild level graphics,
Yes,
but that's not what
yes.
they are.
Right.
That's how I remember it, but that's
Yeah.
not how they are. Um,
Man,
that's like
that is
Final Fantasy 8 and Final Fantasy 7 are so hard to go back to, just like the original versions, because of the jaggedness and a lot of stuff was made with CRTs in mind and doesn't work quite right on LCDs.
right.
One of the things that I was watching a series of retrospectives on Final Fantasy, and in Final Fantasy 1, the mountains are white with black dots. And the reason they said they did that is because on a CRT, when you get the intersection of the white pixel and the black pixel, it kind of has that color bleed around it. And it made the mountains look like they were made of crystal. And that's what the designer was going for, because in Final Fantasy the big thing is with the five elemental crystals. He wanted the mountains to seem like they were made out of crystal. And you don't get that effect on an LCD because you don't have the interplay between the pixels like you do on a CRT. It's the same thing with
Mm,
and the filters do not, like, some of the CRT filters on like emulators are good, but they don't quite get the same effect.
right. Man, that is interesting to think about. The memories versus the reality, and then your experience with that game is such a time capsule for that time period.
Mhm.
I think growing up, we probably thought, "Oh yeah, this will always be like this." Like I if my son is playing this game, he's gonna have the same experience that I had when I was playing this game. It's like, man, the technology is just gonna change so much. The display that he's watching it on, the input
Mhm.
device that he's using, and it's just not gonna be the same way when I was growing up and I was playing Pac-Man and Donkey Kong and Pong, and I was like, "Ooh, these games are for the old guys." And my brand new Super Nintendo is way better than what my dad played, but that is just an interesting thing to think about.
Yeah, I had a thought and I lost it. What were you gonna say?
Tell us, tell us.
I don't remember. It's gone. It vanished. Oh no, it's I remember it was Metal Gear Solid. I remember playing
Oh,
Metal
yes.
Gear Solid on the PS1 and being like, "This looks amazing. This is so good." And I can't go back and play it
Yeah,
on the PS1 now because the
yeah,
graphics are just not. It's hard, and the
yeah,
faces are just.
yes. That Yeah, and I think about that too with, Metal Gear Solid is one that the story is so good. I'm like, "Man, I wish we
Mhm,
could have this as a movie or as a remastered." But then I also think about the other side of that, like, Resident Evil. If you go back to the
mhm.
early Resident Evils, the controls are terrible.
Oh
Like,
yeah,
they're so different, and the modern Resident Evils, the control scheme is way better. So, you think about the visuals and then also the controls of those older type of games, and it's interesting to think about the updates that have occurred.
yeah. There is. I really like Metal Gear Solid Twin Snakes for GameCube. A lot of people don't
Yeah.
like it. They have complaints about things with it, but I love it. and it is easy to, if I had a way to really, I guess I could hook, because I have the disc, but that's one of those GameCube discs that the suffered from the problem where the label started to peel off, so the
Oh,
disc doesn't really
yes.
work right anymore. Um, and there's other ways you could emulate it. Maybe that's something they'll put on, because that was done with Silicon Knights and Nintendo at the time. It's a GameCube exclusive. It's never been on anything else. That version of Metal Gear Solid. So maybe that'll
Ooh,
come to the GameCube Nintendo Switch Online stuff. I'd like to see that
yeah.
and Eternal Darkness, Sanity's Requiem. I don't
Ooh,
know if you've ever played
yes.
that. It was a fantastic game with the sanity effects and whatnot. That would be great to have on. That's another Nintendo exclusive that was exclusive to the GameCube.
Ooh, man. But I'm just it's also interesting with the Switch 2. So from day 1, the only real game for me is Mario Kart World. Everything
Same.
else is a Switch 1 or like a previous Nintendo title. And it does say something about the Nintendo catalog to be able to have access to a lot of those older titles and then that it's running better on this. I love that. Um, Being able to have all of those things at your disposal, it's like, "Oh, man, I have this great library from day 1," although I have to download it.
Yeah,
Um, and speaking of, what do you think about these, like, what Nintendo is calling, like, the virtual
the virtual
game
game cards.
cards?
Um,
I don't like that it takes you out of the menu, like, I'll download a game, and then it takes me out, I'm like, "Hey, I still wanna download more games. Why are you taking me out so I have to go back into that menu all over again?"
I haven't noticed that because the ones that I have came from
Oh,
what
you
was
did the
on my
transfer.
Switch one. I did the
Yes, right.
transfer, so
Yes,
I
that's right.
didn't run into that, and they don't affect me because it's just me. Like I don't have anybody else in the house with a Switch or anybody that I'm sharing with, so like they just get loaded and they stay for forever. Um,
That's nice.
there were a lot of interesting. Ralph had a lot of interesting points yesterday about sharing between a Switch and a Switch 2, and having multiple Switches in the same household, and Chris too, because him and his they both they both got Switch 2s, but they're technically not theirs. They they got them for their wives, and they're the primary users of the Switch 2s. Um, whereas I mean, mine's mine, and I believe yours is primarily yours. Does your wife
Yes.
do a lot of gaming?
No, so she is a very focused gamer. So she loves Assassin's Creed. So anytime there's a new Assassin's Creed, she'll be on that. But
Hmm.
Animal Crossing just I think it was also because it was during lockdown and COVID where that last Animal Crossing on Switch, she
Hmm.
must have put 500 hours into it and built out her island like the most extravagant thing of all time. It's funny, I actually have pictures of her on my Google Photos of her falling asleep in the bed with the switch with the Switch Lite. And Ralph talked about his Switch Lite. That was another thing that was interesting
Hmm.
to me. I'm like you, where I mainly play it docked,
Hmm.
and I don't go to a lot of places and say, "Oh, I'm gonna take a game with me." So, for me, the majority of my Switch experience and that's why the Pro controller is so important also, it's been docked, and to hear about
Hmm.
Ralph and he was like, "Oh, yeah, I had the Switch Lite. I've only been playing in handheld mode." And then he was talking about the weight being a lot heavier, and I was like, "Oh, I didn't even notice because I didn't really hold the last one that much." Um, but
Yeah,
yeah, my wife was like that.
we are apparently in the minority because I remember, um I would love a TV only version because like I don't need it to be portable. I'm not a handheld gamer. I had a Game Boy Advance and a Nintendo DS. But I mean, like the greatest thing in the world for me was when they came out with the Super Game Boy, and I could play Game Boy games on the Super Nintendo because I just didn't want to like. I've never been one who needs to take my gaming system with me wherever I go.
Right.
It is nice with the Switch. When I got the Switch One, now I did that occasionally. Like I said yesterday, like I took my Switch One to work with me on Sundays when I was working, so I could do my turnips on Animal Crossing.
Yeah.
But that's about it. I've never been big on being portable gaming. Um, so I would love a TV only version of the Switch too, because I worry about like, well, the battery's sitting in there not doing anything, even though I don't need to use it. Like
Right.
I did see one person somehow it must have taken a hit or something during shipping or production. They had a Switch 2 that already had like a bloated battery that was popping the
Ooh.
back off the case,
Ooh.
which was wild. Brand new product with a swollen battery. Um,
Mm.
but I, I did check my Switch 1 because it's been sitting in the dock for probably I don't know, over a year, probably
Yeah.
more. Uh and there's no sign of swollen battery on that. I don't know. Nintendo's batteries are otherworldly because like
Yeah.
same thing with this. Like this I opened the backup and checked the battery in it and it's perfect. Like and my DS Lite is still the same battery that came with came with the system and has like it charges and functions perfectly. So Nintendo has some kind of weird black magic with their batteries for their stuff. I don't know what it is.
Yeah, they've there's a lot of stuff that I think about Nintendo and what innovations that they've come up with. Um, Speaking of innovations, what are your
Mhm.
thoughts on this Switch 2 being just an iterative, like it's a Switch Pro almost, and not being the jump between like let's say a Wii and a Switch or a GameCube and a Wii? What is your thoughts on this just being a slightly better technological Switch?
It's unusual, right? Like I kind of miss like what's the new thing that Nintendo's going to innovate for gaming because when you went from the GameCube to the Wii, like that was astounding. And then the Wii led to the PS Move and the Xbox Connect and like all the motion gaming stuff. And then they tried something with the gamepad and it didn't quite catch on with the Wii U the way that they probably obviously hoped it would. Um, and then again they said, well, let's just make the gamepad the whole system with the Switch, which is probably what they would have liked to have done with the Wii U, but just couldn't
Right.
at the time with the way where the
Mhm.
technology was.
Right.
Um, so for them to, I would be interested to see what their next like revolutionary gaming uh innovation would be. Innovation was the
Because
word
they
I was
have
looking for.
something, they're for sure working on something right now. It's just what is
Mhm.
it and how successful will they be? I wonder because that Switch, the lifespan was pretty long for that Switch.
Yeah,
And then I think again, COVID, I think, has kind of maybe changed this a little bit, but the PlayStation 5, I think about, man, it's been 5 years already, and their lifespan versus, like, the console cycles when we were growing up, and this to me is what the Switch 1 should have been, I think, as far as technologically, but they've always not been a focus on technology, they've always focused on gameplay and fun.
yeah.
And that has always worked for them, and then they're also able to get the pricing lower, so
Hmm.
that's always been interesting to me to see the Nintendo approach to this, and they took a hit, I think, a little bit with, the last one versus the Wii was like far and away. It was like the winner
Mhm.
easily. And then I think like with the Switch, I want to say the PlayStation 4 maybe. I'm trying to think. Like in the terms of the impact, the Switch had a huge cultural footprint of okay, you
Mhm.
can take your games from your home to portable and not have a loss in um like experience, because that was the big thing when we were growing up of man, this Game Boy game is not the same as the home console, and then maybe let's say if there's an arcade version, like you had all these different SKUs that you were going to and these different experiences. Now with the Switch, it's like, oh, this is the exact same when I dock it to when I take it on the
Mhm.
go. And that was huge. Like that was something I had dreamed about for years. We finally got it with that Switch 1. I'm also like you, like, man, what are they cooking up? Like, what is going to be the next Nintendo thing?
It'll be
Oh
not
yeah, I mean,
virtual. Not I don't
yeah,
know if they'd go virtual. Well, Virtual Boy 2. That's what it's going to be.
yeah, all red.
um, but maybe a wearable thing of some sort.
Yeah,
Um,
they've got
I
to
was
be thinking about something like that.
I was looking. So the original Switch released March of 2017, and now we're June of 2025. So just about
Almost
8
10 years.
years.
Yeah.
Uh, close, getting almost 10. 2 more years, it would have been 10 years. Um, there's a similar gap between the PS4 and the PS5. Actually, it says the PS4 released November of 2013, and the PS5 was November of 2020. So that was exactly 7 years.
Dang.
What was the gulf between 2006
I feel
and
like there was
the PS3
yeah, I
was
feel like it's shorter.
2006. So the PS3 to the uh Sony has about a pretty steady 7 year from PS3 to PS4 to
Yeah.
PS5, whereas the Switch was 2017. When was the Wii U? 2012. So it was
Actually,
only 5 years between
okay.
the Wii U and the Switch.
And they
But then,
considered that a failure. The Wii U,
yeah.
I think. Yeah, but then that's what it was. You know what? That's what I was thinking of. That's when they took the bump was when they went from the Wii being like the biggest seller, and then the Wii
Mhm.
U lost, and then they came back with the Switch. That's what it was. Okay.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm interested because how do you continue to innovate? And that's something that I think Apple is also now running into of, man, you create the first like smartphone, like and then the cultural impact of the iPhone, having that touch screen, and then having the app store, and then you go to the iPad, and then, all the things that Apple has done.
Mhm.
How does Nintendo continue that? And I'm sure it has to do with the creatives that they're hiring, how those guys, like whoever they're hiring, are putting in the work, and they're just constantly coming up with these new ideas. But you're also like you're fighting yourself. And I think Pixar also had this problem where it was like, man, they were putting out amazing movie after amazing movie after amazing movie. And then you start to when they don't put out the amazing movies, you're like, hey, what's happening to Pixar when in compare like if you compare it to any other studio, it's like, oh,
Mhm.
this is a fine movie, whatever, but it's not game changing, groundbreaking. So
Right.
with Nintendo having that, I think it's gonna be very interesting.
Yeah, and it's an interesting comparison you make because I especially playing through Mario Kart World, uh like Nintendo is the Disney of video games, right? Like their
Yes.
design aesthetics,
Yes.
everything with Mario,
Mhm.
like
Yep.
go racing through some of these courses on Mario Kart World, I'm like, I feel like this should be a Disney ride because it has that
Yes.
same level of detail and like design philosophy. I wanted to see what was the. I'm looking at the Wii.
And
So
you
the
know
Wii
what's
came out.
interesting about that?
Hmm,
Oh, go ahead.
I was gonna say the Wii came out in 2006, and they shipped 102 million units. The Wii U came out 2012, so that was a 6-year gap, and they sold 13 million units. I don't have a
Ooh.
sold number for. It says units shipped for the Wii, but units sold for the Wii U on Wikipedia. But yeah, from 100 and what I say it was 102 million units to 13 million units is.
Ooh.
But the Wii was so like it was so unique in the gaming space that it like because it
It sat alongside the Xbox
and,
and the PlayStation.
and crossed generations. Like there, you
Yes.
how many stories did you hear of like Wii's being bought and set up in like retirement homes because
Yep.
like people in retirement homes were playing Wii Sports.
Right.
Like, and a lot of people bought it for Wii Sports, and that's probably the only thing they ever played on.
Which Nintendo loved having that, be a new market for them of and that also actually fits into the Japanese aesthetic. I think I told you this. I grew up in Japan a little bit. My dad was in the Air Force, and so I
Hmm.
lived in Japan for about 5 years, and that the culture is very referential to the older generation and very respectful, like, I think almost the complete opposite of America, where being old or being older is something that is respected, and, "Oh, man, that person is so wise. They've been around for so long, and, um, they have so much that they can teach us. We can learn from that generation." And Nintendo, I think, just fits right into that of like, "Oh, this you can have too. You can have fun at this age as well. You don't have to just be a kid to enjoy our products."
Hmm.
But you hit the nail on the head with the Disney comparison. There was a video game documentary that I was watching, and it was going through the history of Nintendo. Man, they're kind of blurring to me because I watched a bunch back to back recently,
Hmm.
but I think it was on HBO. It's either HBO or Prime, and they talked about Nintendo specifically copied the Disney formula. Like, the president at the time, whoever it was, like, they were making they were making card games. They weren't even making video games, and they looked at Disney
Hmm.
and they said, "Oh, wait a minute. This is the code right here. We Disney already cracked it. Family friendly. Let's make our stuff appeal to this audience." And I think that decision was made like in the 50s or 60s, whatever it was. And you could just kind of look at the evolution of Nintendo from there. And they definitely
Hmm.
they use the Disney formula. So that is 100% correct. And it's look at how successful they've been.
Yeah, I want to share. I found this picture was on the Wikipedia page for the Wii. That's a great
Whoa.
photo.
Yeah.
I love that.
Dang.
The NES at the bottom, all the iterations, and
Mm.
then this one, I forgot that they had the the mini Wii's that came out
Oh,
like near the end of the console's life cycle.
dang, I don't even remember that.
I remember it now that I saw it, but I didn't
Huh,
like I wouldn't have remembered it. Uh, and I think they had different colors and stuff too
huh.
at that time. But
Trying to
yeah,
squeeze the last bit of juice out
yeah,
of that weed.
it's like they did it. They did it with the the revised Nintendo and
Right,
the SNES. I don't think they ever did it with the N64, but the N64 had all the transparent plastic housing ones. Like
right, right.
there's so many different versions of that N64 console. And I don't
Yep.
think they did anything with the GameCube, aside from I always wanted the Panasonic Q,
Oh, yes,
The
yes,
GameCube that had the DVD player in it and
yes.
just looked cool. Just awesome.
Yes,
Um,
man.
this has turned into just the Nintendo stream. It's
Yeah.
now your although your pre-order experience was very different from mine and Ralph's, and you went through Best Buy as well.
Yes.
But whereas Ralph and I both like showed up a half hour before. Well, Ralph's was different because they didn't. I don't think they closed. They like the store didn't even close at that point. Like you just
Oh, wow.
got your stuff. Whereas mine was a true midnight release here on the East Coast. But still, like he said, they had theirs in hand and were gone after 30 minutes. I was 20 minutes after midnight.
Mhm.
I had mine. You did not have such an easy experience with your pre-order,
Yes.
unfortunately. Wonder
So
Rob says that mini Switch is too red.
I got an email at, like, 8 o'clock, and it surprised me because I was not planning on going
Yeah, I did think that was
opening
odd.
night.
You got your email technically like an hour before the actual release time.
Yeah. So I was like first I was like, "Wait a minute, what?" And then I was like, "Oh, are they gonna pull this back? Are they gonna be like, 'Oh, sorry about that email we sent out. We just somebody, jumped the gun,' or whatever." But then when I was waiting and waiting, I was like, this I think this is real. So I'm gonna go to Best Buy. I'm gonna drive over to Best Buy and see if I can pick mine up because it was yeah, Ezra wants to go to Best Buy too. I was gonna go actually, he did go with me, but I was like, "Okay, I can go pick this up now at 8 o'clock before they close at 9." So I wanna say it was like 8:40 by the time I finally got over there,
Mhm,
and I probably could have had a similar experience to you and Ralph because there were 2 lines, as you guys talked about, one for pre-orders and one for people just walking up there, but both lines wrapped around the building, and I said, "I don't wanna wait more than 5 minutes, so I'm leaving." I probably could have gotten mine in 20 to 30 minutes, but I also had Ezra with me, and I said, He's not gonna wanna wait in line, he's gonna be bouncing around and jumping around. I don't have anything to occupy his time while he's
mhm.
in line." So I said, I'll just go tomorrow." There's nothing like if I was doing a podcast, like, specifically and I had to have it, or if I was covering it for something, I would have done it. But then I said, "No, the casual chat is not until Sunday, so I've got plenty of time." So I went the next day, and I walked in at 2 PM, and there was one guy in line ahead of me, and after that, it literally took me 2 minutes for the guy to turn around, pick up the system, check it out, and then hand it to me. So I was like, "Oh, this
Mhm.
is this is great." So I had the next day, I had a good experience. The initial day, I was like, "No, I don't have one. It's not in my hands."
I thought it was interesting that you got the "Your order is ready for pickup" email because 'cause I'm going through mine. I got the "Get ready to pick up your Nintendo Switch 2" at, like, 11 AM on Wednesday. So
Oh,
the day before the day of the midnight release.
yeah.
And then I
That's
didn't get
weird. And I
another
didn't get
email
that.
from them
Yeah.
until the one that said, "Your order has been picked up."
That is weird. I wonder what happened there. Because I would think it's Best Buy. It would be a uniform experience. Everybody would get
Mhm,
the same emails in a row or whatever it is. But yeah, I don't know why. And I've been to midnight, I've gotten every system on launch day. So I've never had that experience before where the email came early
mhm.
and it was legit. Like I could have gone and picked it up. I just like I said, I don't like waiting for anything really, and
I
so
I
it
am with you.
yeah, it was that was really the only reason I didn't stay. I mean, besides Ezra was like, I just don't like waiting in line for anything,
Mhm,
especially since I pre-ordered it. I'm like, "Give it to me." Actually, I had a similar experience at this Fan Fusion the day before the Hayden Pictures. There was a
mhm.
panel with him, and I went to wait in line, and I saw like 100 people in line, and I was like, "Oh, okay, I guess I'm late here." So I got to the end of the line, and a security person goes, "This ain't the end." And I turned around, and there was like 500 people on the other side of the wall. And I was like, what is going on? So I went and waited in that line for about 10 minutes. And then it dawned on me, wait a minute. I paid for silver status, which was
Mhm.
you're not supposed to wait in line. So why am I waiting in line? And it was not very organized. Like they didn't tell you, okay, this was the general audience and this is the silver and this is the gold. So I walked up to the front and I'm like, hey, I'm silver. And they're like, oh, they already went in. And I was like, oh, so I just walked right in.
Yeah.
So that's another experience. I was like, I paid money for this, so I should not have to wait in line. I will pay a little bit extra for me to not have to wait. I just don't like waiting.
Yeah, it depends on how much you value your own time, and I value my own time pretty highly. So,
Yes.
yeah, I will pay extra to not have to
Yeah.
wait for certain things. Um,
Not
there was
crazy,
a
but a little bit. I will wait.
there's a similar experience someone had at my midnight release. They they ended up in the wrong line, like, they were pre-order, but they were waiting uh,
You are a
in the
dumb.
pickup line.
Hey.
Um, they were waiting in the pickup line, and then I don't know, it's still they had a voucher that they had gotten from one of the Best Buy employees that had, like, the number 4 written on it, and it was weird because it was like because I remember we've done those before. I say we, like, I still work there. I don't work there. I haven't worked there in nearly 10 years, but I still say we, like, because I did work there for over a decade. Um, they've done midnight releases like that before where they had the vouchers with the number on them, and they gave them to people so they didn't necessarily have to, like, stick around. But that wasn't how they seemed to be going for this release. So like it was a weird mix of a couple different things. But yeah, I was in and out in like 20 minutes. I waited. It was probably an hour because I got there at like 11:30. So I spent about
Oh,
a
okay.
half an hour waiting outside. But once midnight rolled around and they started giving handing out the consoles, it was only about 20 minutes for me. So we talked controllers, we talked pickup. How were you liking Mario Kart World so far?
So far, I'm liking it. I've had a Mario Kart kind of similar experience over the years where I'll play it like for the first week, and then I
Mhm.
won't play it for years after that, just because I don't have a lot of I don't play it with a lot of people. Back
Yeah.
in the day, actually, Wonder Rob, who was in the chat, and I used to work at Hollywood Video, and
Mhm.
we had a Game Crazy connected to us, and actually, I worked at the Game Crazy later, but the Hollywood Video, we would get our DSs out and play Mario Kart levels when it was slow, like when people weren't in the store. So we would play it in between, and that was a time when I was like, "Oh, I'm playing Mario Kart over and over and over again." But I'm really liking um, the new, like the newness of this one. It's not like
Mhm.
a huge leap, but just having that open world and then um, this new the frame rate improvements and the graphical improvements. This has been a fun thing. But once that Donkey Kong comes out, oh, I'm gonna be
Yeah,
playing that one
that's the
nonstop.
game that you were excited for. Um, it looks interesting. I'm not sure if that's one I'm going to pick up or not, but um, yeah, the
Man,
completely destructible environments are. We talked a little bit about that yesterday. Like are interesting because there was that craze in like the early 2000s where everything. Do you remember there was a Hulk
yeah,
game that like the
yes, yes.
entire
Ultimate
the entire
Destruction.
city was
Yes.
destroyable,
You could
and
take the cars and use them as boxing gloves. Yeah.
yeah, and
You could punch the walls.
Mercenaries 2, I
Yeah.
believe everything was destructible, and there was another one because I was looking.
Red Faction was a big one.
There was another one that I forget what the name of like. I briefly played it. The premise of the game was that you were on Mars or something, and your Is it?
Oh,
Is
I
it
think
Red
that was
Faction?
Red Faction. Yeah.
Is it? Okay.
That
Yeah.
was a
Like,
huge, like, it was marketed at, "Hey, look, fully destructible environments," and
yeah.
I remember testing that out one time, and I was like, "Oh, this is why a lot of games don't have this," because I just went down into the ground or something, and it
Yeah.
just went nowhere, and I was like, "Oh, this is why. This is not fun."
Um, yeah, that was a big thing for a long time, and they've kind of moved away from it. So it'll be interesting to see if that sparks a new craze of games with fully destructible environments being the hot stuff again. Because like Summer Games Fest was Friday. I didn't watch the whole stream, but I saw comments that are like, is every game just Elden Ring now? Like it's that thing
Oh,
where Elden Ring comes out and it's super popular, so everybody's like, we need to fast track development on a game that is our version of Elden Ring, and now they're all starting to come out.
yes, 100%. But that's also just like when something is popular, then the other studios are, "Oh, we gotta capitalize on that. We gotta make some our version of this." But yeah, that is it's funny when there's a game mechanic or something that comes out and it's like it almost is like a no-brainer, and you're like, "Oh, why didn't we think of that?" And then you start to
Mhm,
see like a bunch of companies. I feel like Grand Theft Auto was that way with open world, and people are like, "Oh, we
mhm.
can do open world? We could do this." And then they don't do it as good
Yeah.
as the originals. Um, but yeah, I think just seeing the innovator put something out and then watching the rest of the industry kind of copy that. Actually, you know what? Um, real quick side about that. I think Into the Spider-Verse and Across the Spider-Verse did that with animation where they did a different style where they were animating on the 2s instead of the 4s, and it just looks
Mhm,
different and it looks interesting, and Puss in Boots copied that, and, there was so many animated movies that came out after that that were copying that, and there's a new Predator movie that just came out on Hulu, Killer of Killers, and it's that same style, and I was like, "Man,
hmm.
this is great," but I'm also thinking of they did it Spider-Verse did it first, and they were the innovators, but I'm hearing great things about this Killer of Killers.
Oh goodness, that's a that is
Did
a
you watch
chunky Terminator or Terminator, chunky
Yeah.
Predator. Wow.
Did you watch Prey? I don't know
Yes,
if you're
that
a
was
Predator
great.
fan. Okay. So same director, Dan Trachtenberg, who was a podcaster and now is a big time movie maker, but he made Prey and then he's sticking with the Predator universe with Killer of Killers, and then he's got another live action one coming out, I think next year. So he's like on a Predator uh path right now.
That's like you'll see that with directors sometimes. Like they get into this franchise and do uh one thing, and then they end up sticking with that. Uh,
Right.
and them becoming synonymous with it, and then they have a breakdown and they want to go do other stuff.
Yeah, right.
um, well, you have a hungry child.
Yes.
I have an 8-bit dough adapter to go pick up.
Ooh, yes.
See if I
Let
can
me know
actually
how
get
that
controller
goes
working.
because it's like I love 8-bit dough, but I hate 8-bit dough because of this update experience that
Yeah.
I had. So let me know how that goes.
It's not solely their fault, like, 'cause Nintendo easily could have made it so that Bluetooth controllers could just connect
Yeah.
to this console, but, I mean, I can understand from a company aspect of, like, need wanting to make money and have people buy your accessories, but also, like, come on.
I'm with you.
So, yeah, I if anything else that you wanted to cover before we wrap up the stream here?
Um, I love innovation and I love to see where Nintendo is going with this, but to me, the biggest thing about this is that we did not mention the improved load times where things load faster
Oh, yeah.
and
I
yeah, the
also
frame rates.
saw
Those are the
a,
2 big things.
yeah, I also saw someone compared, like, there's a video. It's on YouTube or on Reddit. If you're interested, you can find it. They compared the load time of games on the internal storage versus a couple of different
Ooh,
micro SD express cards and the game
okay.
card. And so like Mario Kart World on the internal storage, it was like, I want to say it was like 16 seconds from startup to being in the game. Whereas the game cartridge, like using the actual game card, it was like 25 seconds. It was almost an extra, 10 seconds of loading. And the micro SD express cards varied from like between 16 seconds and 19 seconds, but the internal storage obviously was the fastest, which is good because there is ample internal storage on this because it's got 256 gigabytes compared to like the 32 that the first Switch had.
Ah, yes. But yeah,
Uh,
I'm really excited to see what they come up with on this Switch 2.
yeah, it'll be interesting to see what the next 3D Zelda is going to look like, what the next Mario game is going to look like. There's lots of, and if they're going to end up doing a new Animal Crossing,
Ooh,
or
yes.
if they'll continue, because they milked Mario Kart 8 for a long time because that came out
That
on
was
the Wii
crazy.
U.
Yeah. It's crazy how much, but also when I was playing this world, I was like, man, they probably had this done for a while and they were holding on to it to release as a launch title, because they don't innovate too much on Mario Karts, between like the double
Mhm.
dash thing where they had the two racers was kind of big, and then like this one world is supposed to be like open world, but I think we're gonna have some good things. Yeah, bring that with you to McDonald's and say goodbye to Johnny. Goodbye, Moon. It's his monster voice that he does. Thank you very much, Johnny, for having me here. This was a great casual chat. I love these. These are great, and I want you to continue to do these because these have been fantastic for me to be on and for me to watch.
I am. I do not have one lined up next week. I think I'm going to take a break, especially since I did 2 this week. But on the 21st, Shauna from Dice Thespians will be coming on for a casual chat. And then on June 29th, um, I'm pretty surprised about this one. I'm having Bruce Cordell is coming on, and Bruce Cordell is a game designer and a novelist. He's worked on 3rd edition D&D, 4th edition, 5th edition Dungeons and Dragons. He works for Monty Cook Games now. So I shot him a message and said, "Hey, would you like to come on for a casual chat?" And he was like, "Sure." And I was like, "Really?" So June 29th, that one will start a little later. That'll be at noon Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific. But yeah, yeah, no casual chat next week, and then Shauna and Bruce Cordell the following 2 weeks. So that'll be interesting.
Nice.
All right, Vactor, thank you
Excellent.
again. You can find Vactor on This Comic Cooks and Trust in the Force if you didn't already know. And that'll do it. Have a good and I will keep people updated on my Switch 2 controller woes, and hopefully this 8-bit adapter works. So
Nice.
have a good weekend, everybody. Or well, I guess it's over, but enjoy the rest of your Sunday.